Ignited Minds, Unleashing the Power Within India, APJ Abdul Kalam, over 285,000 copies sold. Contents: Acknowledgements, Preface, Chapter The Dream and the Message 1, Chapter 2 Give us a Role Model, page 21, Chapter 3 Visionary Teachers and Scientists, page 40, Chapter 4 Learning from Saints and Seers, page 70, Chapter 5 Patriotism Beyond Politics and Religion, page 100, Chapter 6 The Knowledge Society, page 119, Chapter 7 Getting the Forces Together, page 138, Chapter 8 Building a New State, page 159, Chapter 9 To My Countrymen, page number 179. After that, Epilogue, page 190, Song of Youth, 196, and References, page number 197. Acknowledgements. I have listed some of the books that were useful to me in the writing of this book. I would like to mention 3 books whose ideas I found especially relevant to my theme. They were Chandra, a biography of S. Chandrasekhar by Kamashekhar C. Wally, Penguin Books; Empires of the Mind by Dennis Waitley, Nicholas Braley Publishing; and Manifest Your Destiny by Dr. Vani W. Dyer, HarperCollins. Some of Dr. Dyer's idea on individual achievement I found useful in addressing the theme of a nation's awakening to its potential. The other books that I consulted are listed in the references. Preface. Nations consist of people, and with their effort a nation can accomplish all it could ever want. Motivating India's people and its youth especially is the central theme of Ignited Minds, which continues the trajectory of thoughts taken up in my earlier 2 books, Wings of Fire and India 2020, A Vision for the New Millennium, written with my friends Arun Tiwari and Y.S. Rajan. I have chosen to write about this subject of igniting young minds so that India turns into a developed nation by the year 2020, because all through my career in the field of technology and its management, I relied on the power and potential of youth. My strength has been my young teams who never let me down, and what satisfaction there was in working with them on some of the most complex projects in some of the most challenging situations. Given the freedom to achieve and guide it properly, I am convinced the young of India can accomplish far more. As I began writing, I wondered if I was not overreaching myself. I thought, who am I to write about this capacity of India to realize its destiny as a developed nation? What do I really know about how this can be accomplished beyond what I have learned in my projects and missions evolved around science and technology? Isn't this an area that political leaders, economists, thinkers, and other competent people would address better? How am I qualified to tell others about an ability that has been generally ignored? At first, as I was putting down my experiences with youth, I had no idea of what I would have to say. However, I put aside my doubts and began to examine what I hear from the people I meet during my visits to different places, particularly children, saints and seers, teachers, scientists, industry leaders, and even political leaders. I am sure on my part that India has the ability to transform itself into a developed nation. Through my projects in space, defense, and nuclear sectors, I know that our people have the ability to achieve the best in the world. They have a fantastic mix of belief and knowledge that sets them apart from any other nation on earth. I also know that their potential has gone untapped because we have become used to being subjugated and docile. What better project can I undertake than to tell my people that what they dream of can become possible? That they can have anything that comprises a good life, health, education, the freedom to pursue their goals, and above all, peace. My quest for answers as to how this could be done took me to schools, the countryside, ashrams, and many other places which were not part of my itinerary earlier. It was a new kind of experience, a very stimulating one at that. The paddy fields in Bihar, left to an ad hoc cycle of agriculture, the untapped mineral wealth of the newly formed state of Jharkhand, and the unattended biodiversity of Tripura are throwing a great challenge to the knowledge era that is dawning. In Assam, the sight of the mighty Brahmaputra almost mesmerized me. Its vast expanse of water filled me with a strange sense of helplessness, too. The river's untapped flow was taking a gigantic mass of water into the sea. It made me think that as a nation, too, we are failing to utilize our tremendous energies. Where are we making a mistake? What is it that needs to be corrected? We have a roadmap in our 5-year plans that covers some of the things we need to achieve. We have most of the necessary resources. There seems to be an attitude problem, as if we cannot shake ourselves out of a mindset of limited achievement. This book is all about breaking away from the forces that would prefer us to remain a nation of 1 billion people selling cheap labor and raw materials and providing a large market for goods and service of other nations. I am writing this book to make my young readers hear a voice that says, "Start moving. Leadership must lead us to prosperity." Young Indians with constructive ideas should not have to see them wither in the long wait for approval. They have to rise above norms which are meant to keep them timid in the name of safety and to discourage entrepreneurship in the name of trade reasons. Organizational order and group behavior. As it is said, thinking is the capital, enterprise is the way, hard work is the solution. Every nation has struggled to achieve its goals. Generations have given their best to make life better for their offspring. There is nothing mysterious or hidden about this, no alternative to effort. And yet, we fail to follow the winning track. More than the problems outside globalization, recession, inflation, insurgency, instability, and so on. I am concerned about the inertia that has gripped the national physique, the mindset of defeat. I believe that when we believe in our goals, that what we dream of can become reality. Results will begin to follow. Ignited Minds is about developing that conviction in ourselves and discarding the things that hold us back. This was, in fact, a central thought that I kept in mind as I wrote. Share my dream of a developed India and see it made real in your own and others' lives. In my own way, I have tried to follow my beliefs, to do what I loved doing. I have tried, however, to guide but not to impose my views on others. You will find in this book plain speaking. Surge ahead as a developed nation or perish in perpetual poverty, subservient to a few countries that control the world politically and economically. There are no other alternatives. In the 9 chapters of this book, I take up various themes. I begin with a rumination on peace, without which there can be no progress, and on the shift in the direction of my own life that occurred after surviving a helicopter crash. There is a chapter based on my interaction with children all over India. Other chapters contain the insights I gained in my meetings with Saints and Seers, scientists, outstanding thinkers, and others. There are accounts of some promising experiments in agriculture and in the medical field. Elsewhere, I deal with concepts that carry the seed of solutions. The contents essentially come from the people of this nation, from what they have taught me. I have written this book as an expression of my faith in the potential of India and my countrymen. We have all the resources we need, whether it be people, talent, natural bounty, or other assets. India is truly blessed with a real, though latent, abundance. Scarcity of resources is not the cause of our problems. Our problems originates in our approach towards them. We are spreading our resources too wide and too thin. With our resources and the money we spend, we could easily accomplish 3 times what we do in half the time we normally take. If we were to operate in mission mode with a vision for the nation, the vision generates the best in every field. We must change tracks. It is imperative that our policy making become more responsive and efficient so that the stifled entrepreneurship is liberated. Key to that is better coordination among the various departments rather than emphasis on priorities according to the preferences of individual departments. There are more reviews than views available. Every channel appears blocked by some obstacle or the other. The trapped energies and the suppressed initiative need to be freed and properly harnessed. Nor do we particularly need every time to borrow models from elsewhere. I don't think the American, Japanese, or Singaporean solutions will work for us. Knocking at others' doors will be futile. Instead of importing theories and transplanting concepts, we need to grow our own solutions. Instead of searching for answers outside, we will have to look within for them. I hope that when you go through these 9 chapters, you will be given the guidance that I got from the people of my country and feel connected to the wisdom that is so special to this soil. The reality of a developed nation will become part of your daily life. 20 years from now, I may not be around, but I am sure many of you will be there to share in the glory of success and agree that I was right in being so confident. Many friends and associates helped me put this book together. I am grateful to them all. My special thanks to Mr. Y.S. Rajan and Dr. M.S. Vijay Raghavan for shaping my thoughts with their vital inputs. Dr. A. Sivathanu Pillai has worked with me for a long time, and his contribution has been both timely and invaluable in giving shape to ideas and thoughts. I am fortunate to have his friendship. I am grateful to Mr. H. Sheridan, who directly keyed in my dictations into his laptop computer with outstanding skill. My co-author in Wings of Fire, Mr. Arun Ketiwari, did his usual craftsmanship with words on the manuscript, and I appreciate every bit of that. It was a great pleasure to work with Mr. Krishan Chopra of Penguin Books. From the emanation of my thoughts to the book's realization, his constant iteration was great support. Chennai, April 2002, APJ Abdul Kalam. Now starting book chapter 1, The Dream and the Masses. Dream, dream, dream. Dreams transform into thoughts, and thoughts result in action. Chapter 1, The Dream and the Masses. Dream, dream, dream. Dreams transform into thoughts, and thoughts results in action. On 30 September 2001, I was on my way to Bokaro from Ranchi in Jharkhand when the helicopter carrying me crashed moments before landing. It hit the earth with a thud after its engine failed. All of us on board had a miraculous escape, grateful to God but unfazed by the incident. I went ahead with my scheduled program of addressing the students in Bokaro. At night, however, a panel of doctors persuaded me to take a tranquilizer to alleviate my perceived shock. The drug made me sleep hours ahead of my usual time, 1 a.m. I also failed to rise at my usual 6 a.m. and woke up only after 8 o'clock. It was, however, a disturbed sleep, and sometime in the middle of it, I fell to thinking why the human race, the best of all of God's creations, has been so deeply divided by violence. I imagined a conversation between five people who together symbolize the finest attributes of the human mind and whom I admire deeply. Through their conversation, I sought an answer. In this experience, much more intense and vivid than a dream, though for want of a better word I shall term it that, I saw myself in a desert with miles of sand all around. There was a full moon, and the desert was bathed in its light. Five men, Mahatma Gandhi, Albert Einstein, Emperor Ashoka, Abraham Lincoln, and Khalifa Umar, stood in a circle, their clothes ruffled by the wind. I felt myself dwarfed standing next to the majestic Emperor Ashoka. Ashoka led two lives, one as a ruthless conqueror and the other as a compassionate ruler. The man I stood beside was the one who had just returned from conquest, but victory had been obtained at heavy cost. The Battle of Kalinga claimed the lives of at least 3 lakh people, and an equal number were wounded. I saw everyone looking at Ashoka, who fell on his knees and removed his armor and crown. His face was pale, reflecting the death surrounding him. He looked at the sky. He saw the bright, cool moon shining and God's grace pouring down on Mother Earth. And he looked down at the horror he had created, making blood flow everywhere. In that moment of beauty and horror, the silver moonlight and the suffering and pain on the ground, when nature itself seemed to speak out against what he had wrought. Ahimsa Dharma was born. Emperor Ashoka embraced God's command to propagate love for human beings through his doctrine. As I stood by, I wondered why the Kalinga War, why the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi and of Abraham Lincoln, or many others like them. Has God Almighty faltered in His creation? Is the destruction of mankind essential for a second creation? In that blissful silence, the Mahatma Gandhi spoke. Friends, the divine message we are hearing is the message of creation. Since we all belong to the planet Earth, we may give a message to mankind how people of different races, religions, and languages can live peacefully and prosperously together. God Almighty has blessed us all with something unique that we passed on to mankind through our deeds and efforts. Is that working? Is there any divine message or doctrine? Divine beauty should enter the human soul and happiness blossom to the body and mind. Is it possible? Ashoka said, friends, there is one thing I have realized. There is no victory in causing suffering. Triumph is a peaceful kingdom. Caliph Umar said, I learned after I entered Jerusalem that all men are equal, There is no point in forcing others to follow your path. You will get only that which is ordained for you. God alone is the sovereign. Caliph Umar never saw his position in terms of the special privileges that it carried. To him, government was a sacred trust, and he did his best not to betray that trust in any way. It was Einstein's turn. I would like to recall my friend Werner Heisenberg's view. You know, in the West, we have built a large, beautiful ship. It has all the comforts in it, but one thing is missing. It has no compass and does not know where to go. Men like Tagore and Gandhi and their spiritual forebears found the compass. Why can this compass not be put in the human ship so that both can realize their purpose? Abraham Lincoln, the great American leader who fought against slavery and whose life paralleled that of the Mahatma in certain respects, said at this point, "There is one thing that I would like to say. Happiness comes from a family's prosperity at various levels. God's grace gives bliss to human lives. Happiness and bliss are two important components of a godly life on earth. Perhaps there is so much conflict between peoples and nations because in our pursuit of prosperity and power we have lost sight of ethical values. We must ask ourselves, what is the role of human consciousness? Does it have a part in political thinking, scientific thinking, or theological thinking? Is spirituality acceptable in the business of life? Mahatma Gandhi says, Astavakra, who propounded, "O my son, you are the very consciousness within which arises this phenomenal universe that is not separate from what you are. How can there be a question of anything being acceptable or unacceptable? Let the business of life be peace and prosperity and not exploitation and conflict." This is our message to the planet. Everything that we do, any doctrine that we expose, should be for the good of humankind. The next morning, I kept sitting for some time, drinking my tea and pondering about this strange dream. What if the helicopter had lost power at some more height? Just a few hours before my own mishap, a plane carrying a promising leader and a team of young and talented journalists had crashed, killing all. I had been lucky to survive, and now there was that night's experience that seemed to hold a message for me. What should I do? I looked out of the window. The sun was well up in the sky and there was a shooting breeze. I have always lived in close touch with nature and have always found it a friend, giving without reservation like the mango tree. People throw stones at it, break off its branches, but it still offers its shades to the weary traveler and its fruit to the hungry. Whether it was the sea at Rameshwaram, Tumba or Chandipur, the desert at Pokhran, or the gigantic boulders in Hyderabad, nature has always made its presence felt wherever I have worked. It has helped me to remind me of the divine force that pervades all the creation. I kept on pondering over my dream, and yet the history of the world shows the forces of good struggling hard to make life better for mankind, while the human race also shows a terrible capacity for destruction. Thus, we have Gandhi and other great saints and teachers who lay down the precepts for happy and virtuous life on the one hand, and on the other hand, the death of millions in the Second World War and the dropping of atomic bombs that destroyed entire cities. Thousands have died in the Bosnia conflict, The Israel-Palestine conflict continues to take lives, and on 11 September 2001, terrorists used a new tactic to take lives when they struck at the World Trade Center in New York. At home in the Bhopal gas tragedy, 30,000 people died as the result of the carelessness of a multinational company, and thousands more have died in the Kashmir Valley violence. On 13 December 2001, when the leaders of India were in parliament, an attempt was made by the terrorists to paralyze the country. Where will it all stop? Are we doomed to destroy ourselves? No, we have to find an everlasting solution. I recall a poem I wrote a few years ago, The Tree of Life. You, the human race, are the best of my creations. You will live and live. All give and give till you are united. In happiness and pain, my bliss will be born in you. Love is a continuum. There is the mission of humanity. You will see every day in the life tree. You learn and learn, my best of creations. The 5 great human beings I saw in my dream lived at different times. In the modern world, there are few examples of human beings who embody the qualities that come from realizing the nature of the mind. Once, a child asked me if I had read the Mahabharata, and if so, who my favorite character in it was. The multifaceted characters in the epic represent almost every aspect of human nature, good as well as bad. I told the child that I was particularly attached to the character of Vidura, who showed grit against the wrongdoings of authority and had the courage to differ when everyone else chose to surrender before the tyranny of adharma. Today, it is hard for us to find one true Vidura among our leaders. It is hard for us to imagine such an enlightened being, and even harder for us to aim for such enlightenment. More discouraging still is the quality of public life today. The low level of discourage and the presence of so much ego, anger, greed, jealousy, spite, cruelty, lust, fear, anxiety, and turmoil. I felt a new determination dawning inside me. In this, my most important decision, I decided to help discover the nature of India's true self in its children. My own work and indeed I as a person were relegated to the background. My scientific career, my teams, my hours, all this became secondary. I wanted instead to be a part of the eternal intelligence that is India. I hoped to transcend myself and discover the inner higher self that is in us through my interaction with joyous children. A man is said to pass through different stages in his lifetime. Dr. Wani W. Dyer, in his book Manifest Your Destiny, makes an interesting categorization of them as athlete stage, warrior stage, statesman person stage, and spirit stage. It occurred to me that nations too make a similar transition, and in extending this analogy to them, I have termed the last 2 stages Big Brother and self realization stages, respectively. The stages do not follow the sequence necessarily, they can be coexistent, with one aspect dominant. In the first athlete stage, a nation fresh from an independence struggle or some other transition embarks on an energetic pursuit of performance and achievement. This has happened in Japan, Singapore, and Malaysia. When a nation leaves this stage behind, it generally enters the warrior stage. Proud of its achievements, it finds ways to demonstrate its superiority over others, perhaps through conquest. Ego is the driving force. During this stage, people are busy with goals and achievements in competition with others, and this, as Dad points out, for the individual generates anxiety. Convincing others of its superiority becomes the theme. In the next Big Brother stage, the ego has been tamed somewhat, and with its newfound maturity, awareness shifts to what is important to other nations and societies. In the Big Brother stage, the nation is still an achiever, but it is not so obsessed with proving its strength. The idea is to help others become better. The erstwhile Soviet Union, by its developmental role in some countries, had adopted this role. As with the individual, so too with the nation, the transition from the warrior stage to the Big Brother stage is a rewarding but difficult exercise. There is one stage even higher than this Big Brother stage. In this, a nation recognizes its truest essence. It comes out of the wisdom that the earth is no single nation's inheritance but of all, and its people are aware of the responsibility of the individual towards his fellow human beings. This can be called the realization stage, and India may have the potential to achieve it. In my working career of 43 years, I have changed my tasks in several institutions. Change is crucial. It brings new thought. New thought leads to innovative actions. On 15 August 2001, I took a decision to go for another change. I mentioned my intention to Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who asked me to rethink. I had spoken to him of my desire to be relieved on a few earlier occasions too, but he advised me to continue and prevailed. As a rocketman too, I worked with stages. Each stage is jettisoned after taking the rocket further along its intended trajectory. I worked with the Indian Space Research Organization ISRO during 1963 to 82. In 1980, India launched its first satellite launch vehicle successfully that put the Rohini satellite into orbit and became a member of the Explosive Space Club. I headed the team as a project director of the mission for SLV-3. Our success in this effort gave the nation satellite launch vehicle technology and expertise in control, guidance, propulsion, and aerodynamics, besides the ability to design various rocket systems. Above all, this project enriched the organization with enhanced capabilities in design, development, and management systems, integrating inputs from different institutions such as R&D laboratories, industry, and academia. And the program also gave leaders in technology and management. Today, they are all working in various space and defense programs. This was my first stage in which I learned leadership from three great teachers, Dr. Vikram Sarabhi, Professor Satish Dhawan, and Dr. Brahm Prakash. This was the time of learning and acquisition of knowledge for me. The second stage could then be formed 1982 in the Defense Research and Development Organization. Again, it was teamwork against the background of denial of technology through the instruments of the Missile Technology Control Regime (MTCR) and the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. I had the opportunity to work with teams and DRDO labs that led to the design, development, production, and operationalization of two strategic missiles. These types of strategic missiles will not be available to India from any country, no matter how friendly our relations with it. During this period, three new laboratories and facilities, one in the area of missile technology called Research Center Emarat and at Hyderabad, and two other missile test centers, one on the mainland and the other on the island near Chandipur on the coast of Bay of Bengal, are born with excellent capabilities. In addition, the nation became strong as capability in critical technologies emerged from laboratories and academic institutions that helped us overcome the constraints of the empty sphere. My team could design and develop any type of missile system, including the intercontinental ballistic missile ICBM. During this stage, I have gone through many successes and some failures. I learned from failures and hardened myself with courage to face them. This was my second stage, which taught me the crucial lesson of managing failures. The third stage can be the participation in India's mission to become a nuclear weapon state with a great partnership between the Department of Atomic Energy, DAE, and DRDO with the support of the armed forces. This was a mission well accomplished. However, when children ask me what has given you happiness in your life in the last 40 years, I say I get happiness when heart patients carry KR coronary stent in their arteries and when the physically handicapped children fitted with the lightweight flow reaction orthosis FRO calipers find their difficulties eased somewhat. Both of these came as spin-offs from missile technologies. During this stage, I held the position of chairman of the Technology Information Forecasting and Assessment Council (TIFSC) under the Department of Science and Technology for nearly 2 tenures, about 8 years. This period saw the creation of Technology Vision 2020 based on the work of task teams consisting of 500 experts in all who had available to them inputs from 5,000 scientists and technologists from different fields. Later, the Technology Vision document and the national security aspects got integrated and the India Millennium Mission's IMM 2020 emerged. When I took over as Principal Scientist Advisor to the Government of India in November 1999, the task was to do detailing and evolve a working plan for IMM 2020. It is indeed a roadmap for transforming India into a developed country, the second vision of nation. Certain experimental work on education, agriculture, and also development of a number of villages in an integrated way is currently progressing. A cabinet paper on the subject has been moved for approval of the government. During this third stage, it was building technological strength with an institutional partnership, adapting technology to societal needs, and formulating the vision for the nation that occupied me. The helicopter mishap of 30 September 2001 made me realize that the time to jettison the third stage had arrived. This thought was further reinforced on 2 October, the birthday of Mahatma Gandhi, when I visited Mata Amrita Nandamayi's ashram at Kollam in Kerala. She emphasized the need to integrate spirituality with education to create a new generation of leaders and entrepreneurs. On 12 October 2001, 3 days before I would complete my 70 orbits around the Sun, I formally wrote to the Prime Minister about my decision to retire and requested to be relieved in a month's time. He really relented this time and I prevailed. Meanwhile, I keep visiting schools. During my visits to many states, particularly 2 of the northeastern states, Assam and Tripura and Jharkhand, and also a few places in Tamil Nadu, I have addressed thousands of students, about 40,000 at last count. I found that I communicate well with this age group. I share their imagination. Most important, through my interaction with them, I feel I can ignite in their minds a love for science and through it a sense of mission for achieving a developed India. Will this be my fourth stage? Shall I be successful? I really don't know. But what I do know is that there is no greater power in heaven or on earth than the commitment to a dream. Dreams hold something of that energy which lies at the heart of all things and are the binding force that brings the spiritual and the material together. It had been in my mind for the past few years to undertake research and teaching. For this purpose, combined with my desire to find time to meet school children, I have shifted to Anna University, my alma mater. What a great feeling it is to be among young people bubbling with creativity and enthusiasm. What a great responsibility the elders of this country have at hand to guide this tremendous energy in a constructive way for nation buildings. How can we make up for missed opportunities and the failures of the past? Summary. Spirituality must be integrated with education. Self realization is the focus. Each one of us must become aware of our higher self. We are links of a great past to a grand future. We should ignite our dominant inner energy and let it guide our lives. The radiance of such minds embarked on constructive endeavor will bring peace, prosperity, and bliss to this nation. Chapter 3 Visionary Teachers and Scientists. Whatever you can do or dream, you can begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. Goethe. The great minds of the country had the ability to make others join their endeavor to convert dreams into reality. For them, the nation was bigger than themselves and they could draw thousands to act upon their dreams. In December 2000, I had participated in the birth centenary celebration of Adhyapaka Ratna T. Todadri Iyengar. I graduated in science from St. Joseph's College, Tiruchirappalli, 1954. As a young student, I saw Professor T. Todadri Iyengar, a unique, divine-looking personality, walking through the college campus very morning and teaching mathematics to the students of BSc Honors and MSc. The students looked at him with awe as one would at a guru, which indeed he was. When he walked, knowledge radiated all around. At that time, calculus Srinivasan was my mathematics teacher. He used to talk about Professor Todadri Iyengar with deep respect and would organize integrated classes for first year BSc Honors and first year BSc Physics to be taught by him. I also had the opportunity to attend some of these classes, particularly on the subjects of modern algebra and statistics. When we were in first year BSc Calculus Srinivasan, we used to pick the top 10 students as members of the mathematics club of St. Joseph's, where Professor Todadri Iyengar used to give a lecture series. One day in 1952, he gave a lecture on ancient mathematicians and astronomers of India. He spoke for nearly 1 hour. The lecture still rings in my ears. Let me share with you my thoughts about some ancient mathematicians, glimpses of whom I saw in Professor Todadri Iyengar in my own way. Aryabhata, born in 476 AD in Kushumapura, now called Patna, was an astronomer and mathematician. He was reputed to be a repository of all the mathematical knowledge known at that point of time. He was only 23 years old when he wrote Aryabhatiam in 2 parts. The text covers arithmetic, algebra, and trigonometry, and of course astronomy. He gave formula for the areas of triangle and a circle and attempted to give the volume of a sphere and a pyramid. He was the first to give an approximation to pi as the ratio of a circle's circumference and diameter, arriving at the value of 3.1416. To celebrate this great astronomer, India named its first satellite launch in 1975 Aryabhata. Brahmagupta was born in 598 AD at Vilamala in Rajasthan in the Empire of Harsha. He wrote the Brahma Shupta Siddhanta at the age of 30. He updated works of astronomy. He covered progressions and geometry. He also studied and gave what is known as the solution of intermediate equations of different degrees as well as solution to quadratic equations. Bhaskaracharya was another unique intellectual of his time. He was born in 1114 AD at Vijalbada, located at what is now the border of Karnataka and Maharashtra. He wrote the famous Siddhanta Siromani in 4 chapters. He dealt with astronomy and algebra and is known to be the first recognized mathematician who evolved value to zero from the concept based on Aryabhata's discovery. To honor him, ISRO's second series of satellite was named Bhaskara 1 and 2. The work of these 3 mathematicians of India provides the context of Albert Einstein's remark that we owe a lot to the Indians who taught us how to count, without which no worthwhile scientific discovery could have been made. Then comes to my mind the greatest of all geniuses ever known and acknowledged and who lived within our present memory, Srinivasa Ramanujan. He lived only for 33 years, 1887 to 1920, and had no practical formal education or means of living. Yet his inexhaustible spirit and love for his subject enabled him to make a vast contribution to mathematical research, and some of his contributions are still under serious study, engaging the effort of mathematicians to establish formal proofs. Ramanujan was a unique Indian genius who could melt the heart of as rigorous a mathematician as Professor G. H. Hardy of Trinity College, Cambridge. In fact, it is not an exaggeration to say that it was Hardy who discovered Ramanujan for the world. Why do not our reputed scientists locate another Ramanujan in our schools? Oh, my friends, why don't you in every field integrate and grow instead of differentiating? Every integer is a personal friend of Ramanujan. One of the tributes to Ramanujan said, and it was no exaggeration, Professor Hardy, while rating geniuses on a scale of 100, put most of them in the range of around 30, giving a rating of 60 to the rare exception. However, for Ramanujan, he suggested only the value of 100 would fit. There can be no better tribute to either Ramanujan or to the Indian heritage. Ramanujan's work covers vast areas including prime numbers, hypergeometric series, modular functions, elliptic functions, Mach theta functions, even magic squares. Apart from some serious work on the geometry of ellipses, squaring the circle, and so on. I hope that eminent teachers who teach and inspire the young students of mathematics will continue their unmatched and noble services in the year to come, thus ensuring the march of Indian brilliance in the field. Professor S. Chandrasekhar, the astrophysicist, continued the Indian mathematics tradition in his work abroad. Of course, mathematics is universal. Now the tradition will further blossom with the efforts of Professor C. S. Sheshadri, Professor J. V. Narlikar, Professor M. S. Narasimhan, Professor S. R. S. Varadan, Professor M. S. Raghunathan, Professor Narendra Karmakar, and Professor Ashok Sen, among others. Sir C. V. Raman started his career in the office of Accountant General, Calcutta. But the scientist in him would not let him rest, and he was always probing for answers to some of the problems that interested him. Fortunately, he was supported by the great educationist Ashutosh Mukherjee, who encouraged Sir C. V. Raman to pursue his research. It is noteworthy that the Raman effect, the discovery of which brought him the Nobel Prize, did not come out of a grand establishment set up at vast expense. I believe the urge to show to the world the excellence of Indian minds would have been a major motivating factor for Sir C.V. Raman. The same is the case with Professor S. Chandrasekhar, also a Nobel laureate for his work on black holes. There are some interesting statements in his biography, Chandra, by Kameshwar C. Wale. As it points out, Chandra grew up in what was a golden age for science, art, and literature in India, spurred on partly by the struggle for independence. J.C. Bose, C.V. Raman, Meghanand Saha, Srinivasa Ramanujan, and Rabindranath Tagore, by their achievements in scientific and creative endeavors, became national heroes along with Jawaharlal Nehru, Mahatma Gandhi, and a host of others. Possibly, their great success helped produce an atmosphere of creativity. However, it may be, it is worth nothing, as Chandrasekhar observed, that in the modern era before 1910 there are no Indian scientists of international reputation or standing. Between 1920 and 1925, we had suddenly 5 or 6 internationally well known men. I myself have associated this remarkable phenomenon with the need for self expression, which became a dominant motive among the young during the national movement. It was a part of the national movement to assert oneself. India was a subject country, but particularly in science, we could show the West in their own realm that we are equal to them. Here I would like to quote Sir C.V. Raman, who said in 1969 while addressing young graduates, I would like to tell the young men and women before me not to lose hope and courage. Success can only come to you by courageous devotion to the task lying in front of you. I can assert without fear of contradiction that the quality of the Indian mind is equal to the quality of any Teutonic, Nordic, or Anglo Saxon mind. What we lack is perhaps courage. What we lack is perhaps a driving force, which takes one anywhere. We have, I think, developed an inferiority complex. I think what is needed in India today is the destruction of that defeatist spirit. We need a spirit of victory, a spirit that will carry us to our rightful place under the sun, a spirit which can recognize that we, as inheritors of a proud civilization, are entitled to our rightful place on this planet. If that indomitable spirit are to arise, nothing can hold us from achieving our rightful destiny. Further afield, there was similarly the emergence of others who were great in their respective fields. Interestingly, a music trinity of great saints, Tyagaraja Shamigal, Muthuswami Dikshidhar, and Shyama Sastrigal also emerged at the same time in South India within a 50-kilometer radius. What we should note is that the movement for independence generated the best of leaders in arts, science, technology, economics, history, and literature who stand with the best in the world. In more recent times, too, we have seen the emergence of great visionary scientists. Particularly, I was interested in the lives of 3 scientists, Dr. D.S. Kothari, Dr. Homi J. Bhabha, and Dr. Vikram Sarabhai. I wanted to learn more about their leadership qualities in the scientific and technological fields, which helped link this to the development of the nation. They are the founders of 3 great institutions, DRDO, DAE, ISRO. Dr. D.S. Kothari, a professor at Delhi University, was an outstanding physicist and astrophysicist. He is well known for ionization of matter by pressure in cold compact objects like planets. This theory is complementary to the epoch-making theory of thermal ionization of his guru, Dr. Meghnad Saha. Dr. D.S. Kothari set a scientific tradition in India's defense task when he became scientific advisor to Defense Minister in 1948. The first thing he did was to establish the Defense Science Center to do research in electronic materials, nuclear medicine, and ballistic science. He is considered the architect of defense science in India. We are celebrating this great mind through a research chair at the Indian Institution of Science. Dr. Bhabha did research in theoretical physics at Cambridge University from 1930 to 1939. Homi Bhabha carried out research relating to cosmic radiation. In 1939, he joined Sir C. V. Raman at Second Science, Bangalore. Later, he founded the Tata Institution of Fundamental Research with focus on nuclear and mathematical science. He established the Atomic Energy Commission in 1948. His vision led to the setting up of numerous centers in the field of nuclear science and technology, such as those for production nuclear power or for research in nuclear medicine. These science institutions generated further technological centers, keeping nuclear science as the vital component. Dr. Sarabhai, the youngest of the three, had worked with Sir C.V. Raman in experimental cosmic rays. He established the Physical Research Laboratory at Ahmedabad with space research as the focus. In 1963, Thumba Equatorial Rocket Launching Station TERLS began launching sounding rockets for atmospheric research. Dr. Sarabhai established the Space Science and Technology Center SSTC and was its director. His vision led to the establishment of ISRO with its allied centers responsible for development of launch vehicles, satellites, mission management and applications. These three Indian scientists, all of them physicists, started physics research institutions that blossomed into defense technology, nuclear technology, and space technology, which now employ 20,000 scientists in centers spread around the country. One thing I noted was that all three realized the importance of making the political leadership understand what science could do for the country. It is essential that technologies that give immediate benefits to the people be taken up for implementation by the system regardless of which party is in power. Another important message conveyed by these scientists is that basic science is vital for growth of technology and for development new leaders in science. Let us learn from them the proven qualities of leadership to value science and technology in an integrated way. In 1962, Dr. Sarabhai and Dr. Bhabha were looking for a site to establish the Space Research Station in the equatorial region. Thumba in Kerala was found most suitable as it was near the equatorial region and was ideally suited for ionospheric research. The locality, however, was inhabited by thousands of fishermen living in the villages there. It also had a beautiful church called St. Mary Magdalene's Church and the bishop's house. As such, the acquisition of the land did not move any further. Dr. Sarabhai met the bishop, His Excellency Dr. Peter Bernard Pereira, on a Saturday and requested transfer of the property. The bishop smiled and asked him to meet him the next day. In the Sunday morning service, the bishop told the congregation, "My children, I have a famous scientist with me who wants our church and the place I live for the work of space science and research. Science seeks truth that enriches human life. The higher level of religion is spirituality. The spiritual preachers seek the help of the Almighty to bring peace to human minds. In short, what Bikram is doing and what I am doing are the same. Both science and spirituality seeks the Almighty's blessings for human prosperity to mind and body. Children, can you give them God's abode for a scientific mission?" There was silence for a while, followed by a hearty Amen from the congregation, which made the whole church reverberate. It was indeed a great experience working with Dr. Sarabhai from 1963 to 1971. As a young engineer engaged in the tasks of composite technology, explosive systems, and rocket engineering systems at the Thiruvananthapuram Space Center, I drew tremendous energy from his leadership. Though the nation was in its technological infancy, Dr. Sarabhai was dreaming of developing our own satellite launch vehicles. This would be used to launch from Indian soil remote sensing satellites in sun synchronous orbit and communication satellites in geosynchronous orbit. Today, his vision is almost realized with the launch of the Geosynchronous Launch Vehicle GSLV. ISRO has also operationalized the IRAS and INSAT systems, thereby bringing the benefits of space to the common man. There is an experience I would like to share with you in relation to Dr. Sarabhai's vision for space programs. I wrote briefly in Wings of Fire about this episode. The design project of India's first satellite launch vehicle was taken up at the Vikram Sarabhai Space Center. The design of each stage of rocket, heat shield, and guidance system was given to selected project leaders. I was given the design project of the fourth stage of SLV-3, that is the upper stage rocket, which would give the final velocity to put Rohini into orbit. This fourth stage uses an advanced composite material that provides high strength with minimum weight. It also has maximum loading of high energy solid propellant. While we were developing the design of this upper stage in 1970, I received a call from Dr. Sarabhai from Ahmedabad stating that he would be visiting Thiruvananthapuram along with Professor Herbert Curien, chairman of CNES, the French Space Agency. I was asked to give a presentation about the fourth stage to Professor Curien's team. When the presentation was over, we realized that the SLV-3 fourth stage was also being considered as upper stage for the French Diamond P4 launch vehicle. The CNES needed an APJ rocket motor nearly double the propellant weight and also size of the stage that we had designed. A decision was then taken in the same meeting that the fourth stage should be reconfigured to match and suit both Diamond B4 and SLV-3. I mentioned this episode because at the time this decision was taken, we ourselves were in the design stage. Such was Dr. Sarabhai's confidence in the Indian scientific community. Development work on this stage started ahead of the other stages of SLV-3. With her motivation thus boosted, work proceeded in full swing. A series of reviews took place between the two teams, and the fourth stage graduated from drawing board to developing stage. Unfortunately, in 1971, Dr. Sarabhai passed away, and at the same time, the French government called off the Diamond P4 program. Once the fourth stage was developed and a series of tests was going on, a new requirement appeared on the horizon in the form of India building a small communication satellite to be launched by the European Ariane's launch vehicle for the Apple Ariane's passenger payload experiment communication satellite. The SLV-3 fourth stage proved a perfect fit, and it was included in the payload of the Ariane's launch in 1981 from Kourou, France, Guinea. The vision seeded in 1970 by Dr. Vikram Sarabhai was indeed realized when Apple was placed in geostationary orbit and started communicating with our Earth stations. Apple's success proved that a vision with committed scientific support will achieve its aim. This achievement came as a fantastic fillip to the rocket technologists in the country. The visionary may not be with us today, but his vision gets realized. The dream of Dr. Sarabhai was shaped into reality by Professor Satish Dhawan after he took charge of ISRO from 1972. Professor Dhawan structured and nurtured ISRO with his space profile, and his work led to many significant accomplishments and benefits from a number of remote sensing and communication satellites. The polar satellite launch vehicle accomplished the feat of launching multiple satellites for India and other countries, injecting them in different orbits in a single mission. I learned an important lesson in management from Professor Dhawan when I was appointed Project Director SLV-3 in 1972 to design, develop, and launch the first satellite launch vehicle to inject Rohini into near Earth orbit. This was that when a project director is appointed, the whole organization, including the chairman, ISRO, works for his success. It is a lesson that has been of abiding value all through the other projects I have worked on. The other thing I have learned after more than 40 years of working in 3 departments and various projects and programs is that you will succeed as a project leader as long as you remember that the project is bigger than you. However, the project leader tries to make himself out to be bigger than the project, the enterprise suffers. I recall my working at ISRO's headquarters, Bangalore, as Director Launch Vehicle Program Systems in the early 1980s, when we were debating the performance and cost effectiveness of launch vehicles. In 1981, the scientists of VSSC, Thiruvananthapuram, with the help of other ISRO centers, evolved a configuration of the PSLV core vehicle with 2 large strap-on boosters. The PSLV weighed about 400 tons at takeoff. Professor Dhawan wanted to study an alternative and simple configuration. I and some of my colleagues, A. Sivathanu Pillai, N. Sundararajan, and K. Padmanabha Menon carried out mission, technology, and feasibility studies for the optimal configuration. The team designed several options, including a unique core vehicle with an advanced solid propeller booster using fast stage rockets of SLV-3 as a strap-on. This brought the PSLV weight down to only about 275 tons at takeoff. Professor Dhawan used to come almost daily to my small room, which was close to his office, and debate the possible configuration choice. He was himself a foremost aerodynamic specialist with mathematics and system engineering background, and would illustrate his ideas on the blackboard and ask us to do more homework. We also studied the growth opportunities of PSLV with the cryogenic upper stage as a GSLV and the possibility of launching due east geosynchronous missions. Professor Dhawan put the 2 most favored configurations up for discussion among the experts and the ISRO teams. Detailed examination and debate, taking the long-term plans into account, took place, and they chose the PSLV configuration as proposed by my launch vehicle team. Professor Dhawan considered the future scenario of operationalization of PSLV and GSLV, bearing in mind the satellites and application programs, and decided on this unique configuration and evolved the roadmap for ISRO for the next 15 years. I and Professor Narasimha brought out a book, Development in Fluid Mechanics and Space Technology, with Professor Dhawan's handwritten 15-year space profile based on the chosen PSLV configuration. A memorable day for me is 31 May 1982. Professor Dhawan gave me a send-off in an unconventional way. He called an ISRO council meeting to discuss the future launch vehicle program. I made a presentation to the directors of the ISRO centers on performance and cost effectiveness of our launch vehicles and the growth profile. After the presentation, Professor Dhawan broke the news that he had given me to DRDO. This decision indeed gave me a change that led to progress in a different field. We see today self-reliance in launch vehicle technology with PSLV operational and GSLV getting ready to be operationalized. This is close to the direction envisaged in the early 1980s by Professor Dhawan. The recognition of ISRO as a successful organization was due to the strong foundation and space profile envisioned by him. One test of leadership is also how well successors are able to carry forward a program. At ISRO, Professor U. R. Rao and Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan brought further success and glory to the organization. After his retirement, Professor Dhawan continued as a member of the Space Commission and in that capacity continued to help the organization which he built. Remarkably, Professor Dhawan saw the space missions envisioned by him come into being in his lifetime. He also saw in his lifetime many of those he had tutored emerge as strong technology leaders themselves who have contributed immeasurably to the country. What a great personality he was. After joining the DRDO, I started the missile development program there. During the Integrated Guided Missile Development Program IGMDP, the focus was to design missile with state-of-the-art performance at the time of deployment. The surface-to-surface missile Prithvi became the best in its class and users delight with its high accuracy, reliable performance and the maneuverable trajectories. The first stage of SLV-3 became handy to configure Agni as a long-range deterrent. It blossomed from the Rex re-entry experiment program convinced by my team in 1981. Both Prithvi and Agni are in production and induction phase. Trishul, which is a surface-to-air missile, and Akash, once development is complete, will be contemporary missile. The third generation anti-tank Nag will dominate as one of the best such missile. In any aerospace or missile development program, delays are possible owing to the technical complexity of the work. But this should not deter us. The propaganda of foreign sellers and their associates in India should not dictate India's procurement decisions. My experience in dealing with the network of institutions that has been established is that our country has tremendous potential to develop the best technologies in this field. India could combat the MTCR very effectively, thereby proving to those who wanted us to fail that we can do it. Once we had developed competence in the design of missile systems, I looked beyond the IGMDP. The natural course of action appeared to be the supersonic cruise missile, which is essential in tactical warfare. Many countries have cruise missiles, but they fly at subsonic speed. Our association with one of the Russian institutes, NPO, Machinostroina, developed into a partnership in the joint design and development of supersonic cruise missile system. This partnership is based upon friendship and equal competence. I recall my association with Dr. APJ Abdul Director General of NPO, an outstanding scientist of our time who had developed 7 types of cruise missiles and inducted the systems in the Russian Navy. Creating a joint venture between India and Russia in high technology projects in the prevailing situation in the 1990s became a complex question and a challenge to both Dr. Yefremov and me. Whenever I met Dr. Yefremov, I got the feelings of meeting a great scientist like Professor Satish Dhawan or Dr. Werner von Braun, the father of rocketry. Dr. Yefremov took me to his technology centers, which are not normally shown to any foreigner. He truly treated me as a friend and arranged an Indian launch in his laboratory. I took him to Research Center Imarat in Advanced Missile Technology Center at Hyderabad. He was genuinely pleased to see the strides we had made. Our scientific minds merged and our friendship blossomed. We christened the joint venture as Brahmos, a combination of the names of the 2 rivers, the Brahmaputra and the Moscow. Shivathanu Pillai, Ramanand Venugopalan, and Vice Admiral Bharat Bhushan, along with the Russian specialist, gave shape to the joint venture. Shivathanu Pillai was the natural choice as the Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of the joint venture, concurrently holding charge in DRDO as Chief Controller R&D for Missile. The dual role and exceptional decision of the government was essential to ensure the success of this venture. Venu Gopalan, an outstanding propulsion scientist from the Defense Research and Development Laboratory, became the project director. A new kind of joint venture came into existence, one which bridged the scientific community and industry of the two countries in design, development, production, and marketing of an advanced technology weapon. It was a source of great joy for me, as it was for the two teams. The first flight of BrahMos on 12 June 2001 from the interim test range Chandipur was a milestone signaling the progress of the joint venture. The second flight on 28 April 2002 confirmed the results of the first and came as a great encouragement to our effort. Dr. Yefremov and I are glad that both India and Russia have realized that this joint venture is the right way to bridge two friendly nations for building high technology weapon systems that could enter the world market. My dream of marketing an advanced weapon system ahead of the so-called developed countries will come true through BrahMos, even though I am away from the scene. The team that I built has performed creditably. I am happy. I read a book titled An Unfinished Dream by the milkman of India, Dr. Verghese Kurian. He says in the book, it was by chance that I became a dairyman, but a British expert's criticism, the sewer water of London is bacteriologically superior to the milk of Bombay, served as a challenge to the young Korean who has taken dairying from strength to strength over the decades, so that today India is a front ranker in milk production. On a visit to Anand, I had the opportunity to spend a day with him. As I went around the Amul establishment, I saw value addition at work. From milk, the cooperative has branched off to making numerous derivatives including butter, cheese, and ice cream. These initiatives have given it the strength to be a major player in a highly competitive market. When I asked him what, in his view, was one sure way of launching the country on a growth trajectory, his answer was, you must build on the resources represented by your young professionals and by our nation's farmers. Without their involvement, we cannot succeed. With their involvement, we cannot fail. While talking about scientists, I recall my meeting with a medical specialist, Professor Kakarla Shubharao, at the Indo-American Cancer Institution at Hyderabad. I asked him if cancer was some unmitigated curse. Yes and no, said the 77 years old Albert Einstein professor of radiology. Yes, because we genetically inherit certain traits which make us vulnerable to cancer. No, because whether we get it or escape it depends largely on our immune response. Research into how the brain can influence immune response has given rise to the new field called psychoneuroimmunology (PNI). Findings in this field have brought great hope to people dealing with such difficult illness as cancer, AIDS, CFIDS, chronic fatigue immune dysfunction syndrome, and other immune system related diseases. Other fields of research include psychoneurocardiology (PNC), the study of the mind-heart connection, or psychoneurohematology (PNH), the study of how the mind can influence blood-related disorders such as clotting problems and hemophilia. Such is the power of thought. These are diseases which normally require intensive treatment, but even here, medicine acknowledges that our minds can play a major role. Summary: Vision ignites the minds. India needs visionaries of the stature of J.R.D. Tata, Vikram Sarabhai, Satish Dhawan, and Dr. Verghese Kurian, to name a few, who can involve an entire generation in mission-driven programs which benefit the country as a whole. Chapter 4, Learning from Saints and Seers. For the society to prosper, there are two important needs. They are prosperity through wealth generation and cherishing the value system of the people. The combination of the two will make the nation truly strong and prosperous. I always tell the young to dream. This message comes from the understanding that each one of us has within them ourselves the ability to create the circumstances for success, to attract, so to say, to ourselves what we desire. When as a child Einstein first saw a compass, he was fascinated by the way the needle moved whenever they changed direction. Watching the needle became an obsession with him as he tried to understand the invisible force that moved the compass needle. Where was the force located? Who controlled it? Why did it always work? What was it made of? Were there places where it didn't operate? It is, of course, the magnetic energy of the earth that keeps pulling the compass needle, a tiny magnet, along the north south axis of the earth's magnetic field. But is that all there is to it? We can easily see the magnetic field at work, but cannot detect it with our sense, even though it is everywhere on our planet. Logically, then, it is in us also. Similarly, our planet is in a perpetual state of motion as it goes spinning through space. Everything on the planet is a part of this movement, even though it appears to us that we are motionless. I am on the planet and thus part of the energy that moves it. The energy that is the very essence of the planet is in me. There argues that we can use this universal energy to bring to us the objects of our desire, because what we desire is also in us and vice versa. It becomes a matter of alignment, and will that allows us to tap into this force. With thoughts like this on the points where science and spiritualism converse, I carved out opportunities to visit a few unique places in a year's time. Most of these places were new to me and offered me the chance to learn more about certain things I had always been interested in but could not explore, such as the world of Saints and Seers. I saw a diverse range of activities being carried out in the spiritual centers I visited. At one, it was the value based education being provided that impressed me. At another place, an attempt was being made to integrate ancient science with modern, and Sanskrit documents were being studied to gauge the progress made in earlier times. I saw how a Sufi saint could become a magnet for people of different faiths. I had an extended discussion on the fusion of science and spirituality with a guru. I saw how a Punna Atma can go beyond providing religious strength to setting up hospitals and universities as also a scheme for supply of water. There was one place which seeks to alleviate the distress of patients who are suffering from terminal cancer. Another center was exploring the link between medical science and meditation. My journey started on 13th June 2001 when I met Pramukh Swami Maharaj of Swami Narayan Shanta at Ahmedabad. My discussion with Swami Ji on the fusion of science and spirituality and the role it could play in national development went on for an hour. I am tempted to reproduce verbatim the questions and answers with Swami Ji. Abdul Kalam, A.K. Swamiji, India had the vision since 1857 to be an independent nation. It took 90 years for us as a nation to get freedom. During this time, the whole nation, the young and old, rich and poor, educated and illiterate, was together in this aim. The goal was one, focused and well understood, to acquire independence. Swamiji, what is or what can be such a vision now? Since the last 50 years, India has been a developing country. It means economically it is not strong, socially it is not stable, in security aspect it is not self-reliant, and that is why it is called a developing country. 500 members of TIFSC, Technology Information Forecasting and Assessment Council, have given thought to what should be the next vision for India. How do we transform a developing country into a developed country in the next 20 years? We have identified 5 important areas to transform India: education and healthcare, agriculture, information and communication, infrastructure and critical technology. Swamiji, our problem is that we may present this before the government, but how do we create people with values to carry out such a big vision? What we need is a cadre of value-based citizens. Otherwise, resources will not be deployed effectively, as we are witnessing. For this, we need your suggestion, Swamiji. Swamiji told. Along with these 5, you needed a 6th one, faith in God and developing people through spirituality. This is very important. We need to first generate a moral and spiritual atmosphere. There has to be a change in today's climate of crime and corruption. We need people who live by the laws of the scriptures and bear faith in God. For this, we need to rekindle belief. This will make things easier. Our problems will be solved and we shall be able to achieve what we dream. Abdul Kalam. Swamiji, for carrying forward such a big vision of transforming India, should we first create a spiritual tradition, make people more spiritually inclined, and then embark upon our vision or focus on one of the important areas like education or health? Or should we integrate everything and begin simultaneously? Swamiji answered, we must move ahead simultaneously. Work in the 5 fields that your team has identified for the country's progress should be continued, and this should be concurrently incorporated. Our culture teaches us to learn both para spiritual and apara worldly with the knowledge. Therefore, together with knowledge of the apara, that is worldly, one should learn the para, that is spiritual, as well. If one learns this, then apara worldly knowledge, vidya, will become founded on drama, dharma and spirituality. One must remember that in God's scheme of things, the whole purpose behind creation is the idea that every person, every soul attains bliss. APJ Abdul Kalam asked, to realize this great dream, 3 types of people are needed: Punnata, virtuous people; Punna Neta, virtuous leaders; and Punna Adhikari, virtuous officers. If the population of the 3 are to increase in our society, then India would become the Jagat Guru, world leader. How can their numbers be increased? Swamiji answered, together with your academic and scientific training, give spiritual training in our schools and colleges. Nowadays, spiritual education has been removed from the syllabi of school and colleges. That's which should be taught from infancy is being neglected, and we continue to provide only academic knowledge. But from the beginning, right from birth, people should be taught values. Only then will people become virtuous. Knowledge of our scriptures and great sadhus and sagas should be included in the syllabus. The social, spiritual, and political leaders whom we hold in respect imbibed the correct values from the very beginning. In the past, such values are taught in our Gurukul system of education. Whether a prince or a pauper, everyone studied together, along with academics. Lessons such as Satyam Vada, speak the truth; Dharmam Chara, treat the path of righteousness; service towards others and faith in God were taught. APJ Abdul Kalam asked, Swamiji, good citizens cannot be produced by the laws of the government. Can spiritual institutions do it? Can you ask parents to guide their children to learn the right values up to the age of 50? Similarly, in the elementary schools, teachers should also instill this in the students. But if we fail to do this, then the government cannot be itself produce good, honest citizens. Is my understanding correct, Swamiji? Swamiji answered, yes, it's true. It's definitely true. We have been saying from the very beginning that values should be taught by parents at home, teachers at school, and the guru in later life. APJ Abdul Kalam told, Swamiji, when I first launched a rocket, it failed, but strengthened by ISRO's support, my team combated the failure to achieve success. This sentiment is also expressed by Tiruvalluvar in the Tirukkular, when failure occurs, challenge in with cheerful attitude. Again, Swamiji, when one possesses such noble thoughts, patriotism is but natural. That's why we say, if spiritual knowledge is given from the beginning, love and pride for one's country, society and dharma is a natural result. However, spiritual values should form the foundation of life. APJ Abdul Kalam. Spiritual strength is important, and along with this, we must have economic strength, for the strength is respected in the world. A combination of both is necessary, and to achieve both, there is only one answer: sweat, hard work is a must. Swamiji, we often say human effort and God's grace. Even failure of the first rocket which you faced was for your good. It prodded you to make things better. God has ultimately given you success. APJ Abdul Kalam. For India's development, I wish to establish a trust, Vision 2020. With 5 like-minded individuals, I seek your blessings for this. Then Swamiji answered, God's blessings are already upon you. I shall pray that your ideas are successfully realized. May India prosper both spiritually and economically. What I wish to say is that the stronger the spiritual wealth, the stronger will become all other forms of wealth. If you increase material wealth alone, man will be lost in luxury and worldly pleasures. Spiritually, will guide him back, help him rise above mundane pleasure. In reality, we rarely provide that what is really needed. We provide everything else, clothing, food, shelter, but with all this, we should also provide spiritual wealth. One should remember that when man gains extra money and power, more than what is necessary, then he invites ruin, restlessness, and destruction. He loses control. It's good that you have come here today. It's given us much joy. The rishis or sages of the past have also given us signs. You too are a rishi. In September 2001, I visited the Dargah Sharif or Sufi mystic Khaja Moinuddin Chishti, better known as Garib Nawaz, at Ajmer. Here in AD 1256, at the age of 114, the saint entered his cell to pray in seclusion for 6 days, at the end of which he passed away. As I went round the Dargah, I was struck by the beauty of all that the shrine symbolized. 800 years ago, a saint traveled from Arabia, passing through many lands before reaching Ajmer. Hence, he brought together different communities who lived peacefully around his shrine. The teaching and message of Khaja Garib Nawaz have been of an exceptional character. His simple teaching penetrated even a stony heart. His affectionate love could silence the fiercest enemy. He brought the message of universal love and peace. Chishti Sufis who succeeded him continued the tradition set by him. They are truly the pioneers in national integration. The teachings of Khaja Sahib have been recorded in several books. For him, one who possesses the magnanimity of the river, the kindness of the sun, and humility of the earth is closest to God. Khaja Sahib said that the noblest character is possessed by one who is graceful in poverty, content in hunger, cheerful in grief, and friendly in hostility. According to this great saint, the surest way to avoid the punishment of hell is to feed the hungry, to redress the aggrieved, and to help the distressed. Khaja Sahib gave a role model of Arif, one who considers death as his friend, comfort as his enemy, and always remembers God. And Arif fears, respects, and possesses shyness. Why can't we conduct ourselves as Arifs? I wondered. Before any action, ask yourself this question: is what I am about to say or do going to bring me peace? As Dwyer says, if the answer is yes, proceed wholeheartedly, and with it you will be allowing yourself the wisdom of your highest self. If the answer is no, be cautious of your ego that is at work. The ego promotes turmoil because it separates you from everyone, including God. At Khaja Sahib's shrine, I could listen to the voice that only wants you to be at peace with yourself. Ajmer is located in the picturesque Aravalli range. Besides the Dargah Sharif, it has the holy lake of Pushkar. These two holy places symbolize, as it were, the abiding amity between the two major religions of India. Ajmer presents a model of a peaceful society. I performed namaz as the thanksgiving for this amity. The scene reminded me of the similar location of two other religious centers, Nagur Durga and Bhilankani Church. On 2 October 2001, I visited Amrita Nanda Mai's Amrita Institute of Computer Technology near Kollam in Kerala with Professor N. Balakrishnan of the Second Science and G. Madhavan Nair, Director VSSC. I addressed about 1,000 young students, teachers, brahmacharis, and shamis. The topic I selected was multi-dimensions of knowledge products. I found in the students a high level of receptivity to new ideas. In their questions, they showed interest not only in technological development but also in adhering to an honest way of life. After the interaction with the students, I met Amma. It was a remarkable experience. How can one take oneself closer to God was the message she was giving to the people. I wondered at the extraordinary effort that had gone into setting up an institution which could build hospitals, set up management schools of high caliber, and provide housing schemes for the economically weaker sections of society. My query led to a discussion with Amma and the other sannyasis. Though the institution imparts education in all major disciplines of knowledge and creates engineers, medical doctors, management graduates, and science research scholars, they are still circumscribed by their individual specialization. Amma suddenly said, something is missing. How to connect? What she was referring to was bringing together these capabilities for a joint purpose. I was at Christ College, Rascot, getting ready for a function there when there was a call from Swami Nikhileswarananda of the Ramakrishna Mission. Swamiji requested me to visit his ashram and I had to agree. After the function at Christ College, I rushed to the ashram. It was the time for the evening bhajan, and so touched was I by the singers. Sharing invocation that I sat down with them for nearly 15 minutes, lost in meditation. Here too, I felt the same vibrations as I did while meditating at Swami Vivekananda Hall, Porbandar, the birthplace of Mahatma Gandhi. On 6 October 2001, the Shankaracharyas of Kachi organized a very important gathering of farmers from hundreds of villages to launch integrated development through the concept of knowledge empowered rural development. I was invited to participate. Panchayat heads belonging to various political parties conversed at Kochi to discuss development under a project designed to provide urban facilities in rural areas. Pura. I was struck by the fact that spiritual leaders are helping focus programs for development. When the meeting ended, both acharyas called me for a private meeting. Swami Jaindra Saraswatigal inquired about the crash landing of the helicopter and blessed me. Swami Vijayendra Saraswatigal conveyed to me that the Maulavi of a very famous 300-year-old mosque was waiting in the mud to take me to the mosque. Swamiji suggested that I visit the mosque. His message brought to my mind an incident in Paramacharya's time. A decade ago, was told by the former president R. Venkataraman. Mr. Venkataraman showed me the mosque very close to the Kachi Math. A few years ago, the mosque Jamaat authorities and the district authorities decided to relocate the mosque to some other suitable place as its present location was inconvenient both for the mosque and mosque. As a large number of people visit the historic mosque and there are huge gatherings at the mosque too, the traffic was becoming difficult to manage. The mosque would rebuild the mosque in its new location. Somehow, this message reached the Paramacharya. He vehemently opposed the whole idea. He said, in fact, when at 4:30 am the call for namas comes from the mosque, it acts as a wake-up call for my divine duties. And also for many other reasons, he was opposed to the relocation of the mosque. He made this clear to both the district authorities and the mosque. The Paramacharya went into Maunam Britam, deep silence. Finally, shifting of the mosque was stopped. I later went to the mosque and met the Maulvi and Kaji and offered namas there. About 50 students were learning the Holy Quran. I sat with them and asked them to recite the Alhamdu, the surah that embodies the Quran. In Kachi, I was privileged to see Vedic recitation and recitations from the Quran proceedings side by side. Therein lies the greatness and essence of India. Can Kachi's integrated approach towards learning become a beacon for us and later for the world? During the discussion in the Shankara College of Engineering among Sanskrit professors, students, and teachers, presided over by the Shankaracharyas, it became clear that ancient Sanskrit literature is a storehouse of scientific principles and methodology, even to the extent of there being texts about how to build a Viman aeroplane. Subjects like physics, chemistry, medicine, and Ayurveda are, of course, well documented. There was a consensus that the work of our ancient scholars and scientists should be thoroughly examined and, where possible, integrated with modern science. An invitation came from the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning at Whitefield for Professor Rama Rao and me. The day began with a morning prayer at 7, followed by a discourse rendered in poetic form. Its subject was how to remove hatred from our hearts by sacrificing the ego and substituting love in its place. When Sai Baba moved amidst the devotees, the effect of his healing presence on people's pain, difficulties, and problems was immediately apparent. In January 2002, I attended a conference on medical technology and healthcare at Whitefield. All through the conference, which began at 9:30 in the morning and ended at 8 in the evening, Sri Sathya Sai Baba was present. He blessed every presentation, and when I finished my 5-minute presentation on how technology would transform human life, an example being the cardiac stent that we had made, he got up and blessed me. to the cheers of participants. I was impressed to see his interest in the conference as I had been impressed by the specialty hospital at Whitefield that I had visited earlier. He had been told that Chennai was facing a water problem, so when he announced that he would ensure water flowed in the city, it was more heartening still. On 3 February 2002, I had an extraordinary spiritual experience when I visited the Brahma Kumari Spiritual Academy at Mount Abu. The deity of the Brahma Kumaris, Shiva Baba, descended on one of the disciples, Dhadi Gurjar. Before our eyes, her personality changed. Her face became radiant, her voice became deeper as she talked about the four treasures: knowledge, yoga, virtue, and service. We, Shibathanu Pillai and Selvamurthy, are lucky to be called by her to the dais and blessed. As she blessed us, she said, Bharat will become the most beautiful land on earth. My interaction with the coronary artery disease CAD patients, popularly known as Dilwalas, at the Global Hospital and Research Center of the Brahma Kumari Academy headed by Dr. Pratap Midha, clearly illustrated that the mind-body interaction, a subject I touched upon at the end of the previous chapter, is vital for health, which is defined as physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. My friend Dr. W. Selvamurthy postulated through years of clinical work that yoga and meditation significantly alleviate pain. The experience which I had the opportunity of initiating through the Defense Institution of Physiology and Allied Sciences DIPAS when I was scientific advisor to Defense Minister include a new approach towards healing through mind-body synchrony. Dr. Pratap Midha and Dr. Silvamurthy joined together and formulated a unique treatment for cardiac patients. When I reviewed this project 2 years back, about 60 patients reported an improved sense of well-being. Now it has yielded excellent results with 400 patients reporting progress. The treatment included lifestyle interventions with Raja Yoga meditation for stress management, low-fat, high-fiber diet for reducing risk of hyperlipidemia, and regular aerobic exercise or walking to improve the cardiovascular and metabolic efficiency. I hope that medical treatment will begin to lay greater emphasis on healing not only the body but also the mind. During my previous visit to the Brahma Kumari Spiritual Academy at Mount Abu, Sister Usha had given me the task of interacting in a group discussion with 30 Brahma Kumaris who had recently joined. It was a pleasure to look at their bright faces bubbling with enthusiasm. In a post-dinner session, when I asked them in turn about their mission in life, the reply was unanimous: to serve the people through spiritual endeavor. Dr. Selvamurthy and I were moved to recite a Tamil poem composed 1000 years ago by Ayuar, which in translation reads thus: It is rare to be born as a human being. It is still more rare to be born without any deformity. Even if you are born without any deformity, it is rare to acquire knowledge and education. Even if one could acquire knowledge and education, it is still rare to do offerings and tapas. But for one who does offerings and tapas, the doors of heaven open to greet him. I then narrated to the Brahmakumaris how the bishop at Thumbayalo's transfer of the land belonging to the church for setting up a space research station, as given in chapter 3 of this book. What is the conclusion to be drawn from this story? I asked them. The Brahmakumaris responded by saying that our civilization is rich, which leads to forward thinking, harmony, and better understanding. With such a great nation and people, why are there communal clashes? I think that when a nation doesn't have a vision, small minds take over its affair. The unification of science and spirituality will be essential to take the benefit of science and technology to mankind. In 1911, Sri Aurobindo wrote in the Song of Humanity, "A time will come when the Indian mind will shake off the darkness that has fallen upon it, cease to think or hold opinions at second and third hand, and reassert its right to judge and inquire with perfect freedom into the meaning of its own culture and tradition." That is the future we need to work towards as we shake off the shackles of poverty. There is one message common to all the places I visited. There is a higher self within you that transcends the limitations of physical world. I felt the presence of this higher self in my father. I have learned over the years to maintain my equanimity regardless of circumstances. I faced failures and disappointments without feeling defeated. I wish to live the rest of my life at peace with myself and others. I have no wish to engage in quarrels with others. This is the challenge before the individual as he tries to transcend his limitations. At this point, I recall a surah from the Holy Quran. O Prophet, you proclaim to the people who do not accept your preaching what you worship, I do not worship, and what I worship, you do not worship. The result of your actions belongs to you. The results of my actions belong to me. What we are, what we believe in is ours alone. Once we have trust in the wisdom that created us, we can develop a faith that sustains us through our lives. Indians are well versed with the concept of higher self, or perhaps highest self is the preferable term. For generations, our ancestors lived their lives by this concept. But for many today, rooted perhaps too deeply in the material world, this idea sounds lofty and spiritual. For me, it has been a cornerstone of the way I live. On one occasion, as I was leaving for Bangalore, I spoke to a friend of mine and told him that I would be talking to young people and whether he had any suggestions. He did not offer any suggestion as such, but offered me these nuggets of wisdom. When you speak, speak the truth. Perform when you promise. Discharge your trust. Withhold your hands from striking and from taking that which is unlawful and bad. What actions are most excellent? To gladden the heart of a human being, to feed the hungry, to help the afflicted, to lighten the sorrow of the sorrowful, and to remove the wrongs of the injured. All God's creatures are His family, and He is the most beloved God who tries to do most good to God's creatures. These are the sayings of Prophet Muhammad. My friend who told me this is a great grandson of a Dikshidhar of Tamil Nadu and grandson of a Ganapatigal Vedic scholar. He is none other than Y.S. Rajan. Such an outlook is possible only in our country. Let us remember the Rig Veda. Ano Badra Karatova Yeno Vishyadata. That is, let noble thoughts come to us from every side. I recall an event that took place in my family. My grandfather and great grandfather are called Ambalakarar, noble leaders in Rameshwara. This island has the privilege of being known as the place where Lord Rama is said to have launched his campaign against Ravana. The island celebrates this event by organizing his marriage with Sita, his divine counterpart. My great grandfather would provide a floating platform for the occasion to carry the decorated Vigara through the holy tank named Ramar Tirtham. The tank is very deep. The floating platform with Vigara Vigraha mm, bedecked with beautiful gold ornaments of Lord Rama is taken round a small mandapa at the center of the tank. Then and now, all of Rameshwaram assembles for the occasion. One year, my great grandfather was witnessing the event when a mishap took place. The Vigraha toppled down and sank. Without any hesitation or prompting, he jumped into the tank and recovered the Vigraha as the entire town watched. The temple priest instituted Muthal Mariathai, first honor for our family. There is a special prayer in the Rameshwaram mosque to thank the Almighty for the recovery of the Vigraha and to bring God's grace on our family. I have always considered this incident as a shining example of a human brotherhood and harmony, especially significant in today's context. Could not each of us help nurture such a brotherhood wherever we happen to be? On 15 August 1947, my high school teacher, Rev. Aidurai Solomon, took me to hear the midnight freedom speech of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. We are all moved to hear him say that we are free. Banner headlines announced the momentous event in next day's newspapers, but alongside the report of Panditji's speech in the Tamil newspaper I read was another news item, one that has been embedded in my memory. It was about how Mahatma Gandhi was walking barefoot in Noakhali to help assess the pain of the riot affected families there. Normally, as father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi should have been on the ramparts of Red Fort, the first one to unfurl the national flag. Instead, he was at Noakhali, such as the Mahatma's greatness and what an everlasting impact it left on the mind of a schoolboy. Having sensed the pulse of the young and armed with the wisdom of the elders, I thought deeply about my own experiences with technology projects where people worked on problems that were new and demanded efforts that were unprecedented. What really makes one succeed in the face of difficult tasks? We have talked about the importance of having a dream and of commitment, of hard work and having the spiritual strength to persevere through difficulties and failures. Is there anything missing in the cycle of creation? Summary of this chapter. Our spiritual wisdom has been our strength. We survived as a nation the onslaughts of invaders and the numbing effects of colonialism. We have also learned to adjust to the rifts and divisions in our own society. But in the process of all the adjustment, we also lowered our aims and expectations. We must regain our broad outlook and draw upon our heritage and wisdom to enrich our lives. The fact that we advance technologically does not preclude spiritual development. We need to home grow our own model of development based on our inherent strengths.